Lingua Brutalica is a podcast that uses ethnographic interviews to study language use in the extreme metal community. We are studying a music scene known for its love of themes and topics generally considered offensive, and it is likely that some episodes will touch on topics or opinions some listeners may find tasteless or ethically problematic. Ethnographic researchers aim to adopt the interviewee's point of view so that we can draw out and study the attitudes, beliefs, and practices that are important to them. We want to make it clear that in presenting these conversations here, we do not endorse any of their content. Our aim is to explore the thought processes behind language use in this long-running, international, and yet understudied scene. Hi, and welcome back to Lingua Brutalica with me, Jess Crook, and my co-host, Wes Robertson.
Hello.
Today we have with us Joe and Philly of Gama Bomb. Hi, guys.
Hi, how's it going?
How are you guys?
Good. Very well. So, just to begin, how would you describe Gama Bomb's music to someone who hasn't heard it before? So, Wikipedia and Encyclopedia Metallum have you down as thrash metal, and you've called yourself thrash to the core in your own lyrics. So, is this your chosen label?
Well, yeah, it would be a bit far off the mark if we didn't consider that our after writing all them songs with thrash in the title and releasing all them albums. But yeah, you never know. You could sleepwalk into the wrong genre, I suppose. Yeah, we're a thrash band. I suppose when you get into the cork sniffing aspect of your own music, about 8 albums in, 21 years in, you probably start saying to each other, well, this song's a bit more, this record's a bit more of a heavy metal record, or this one's a bit more hard rock or whatever. But yeah, Joe, we're a thrash band, right?
Yeah, we are a thrash band. And yeah, I think anyone who isn't a fan specifically of that kind of stuff is probably going to have a harder time with us. Like, I think that people who like Machine Head and don't like Anthrax or something would probably verge on the side of being like, this is weird,
Yeah,
a very specific fan.
Yeah, but then people who like Death would probably like us. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I've been. I like Death and I like you guys.
Yeah, like a lot of the, a lot of these genre distinctions don't really mean anything to anyone outside heavy metal. Heavy metal is a librarian's art form. It's for dorks like us who are very like, oh, this band seemed to have a little bit of brutal slam death, and they're kind of mixing up with New York hardcore. We tend to make these distinctions to ourselves, but in the broader world of creativity, people just go, oh, that's heavy metal music. But yeah, we're a thrash band, and I think more than that, we're an Irish thrash band, which I think actually colors everything. It colors everything that we do.
So before you all started this band, how did you feel about lyrics and metal? Like, did you care? We've had people that grew up poring over lyric sheets and people who just didn't pay any attention and only kind of listened, picking up what they could. Where do you all stand in this sort of dichotomy?
What was your background on it, Joe, before you started writing?
I think that probably growing up, I don't know if you would describe Queen as heavy metal, but they had like a lot of their 80s hits had what I would describe as like hard rock kind of lyrics. Mm-hmm. So yeah, like I kind of grew up with that kind of stuff. I got really into Ugly Kid Joe when I was a kid, and things like Ugly Kid Joe and the Undertones really sort of informed me and Philly and Luke when we started the band that lyrics didn't have to be serious, And actually, before me and Philly even picked up an instrument, for some reason in my house, there was a massive surplus of Christmas cards. So me and Philly, when we were about 14, would go and get high and then go and sit and write fake thrash lyrics in these Christmas cards.
I think we were about 16. We weren't quite that young, but we did. Yeah, we used to have all these blank Christmas cards lying around, and we would go to Joe's garage, where Joe is right now. And yeah, we would get stoned and we would write. And it was almost like, it's very innocent now when you think about it. It's very sweet, actually. We would sit up there like two little nerds, and you would be like giggling to yourself, writing in the card, and then you would hand it to the other person and they would read it out and you'd both scream laughing. And really stupid, really, really stupid stuff like, songs about goats, like kind of taking the piss out of the Megadeth lyrics that we were reading. And there you go. That kind of carried on straight into the band, trying to make each other laugh. But yeah, when I was a kid, I was exposed to a lot of different music. I'm the youngest. With my mum and dad, I'm the youngest of 7 kids. And I grew up, kind of rummaging through my older brother's like bedrooms to find music and stuff and other contraband. And I remember finding the double cassette of Life After Death in a drawer under the bed. And I looked at the cover and I was familiar with Eddie. I don't think you could grow up in the 1980s without seeing Eddie, so I kind of knew what Eddie was. And I put it on. I remember the song was Phantom of the Opera. And I kind of was like listening to the riff and being like, this is mad. How can this be a riff in a song? I was used to guitar riffs, but this just seemed hyperactive, like so many notes, you could almost not make out what was happening. And then I opened the booklet and I read the lyrics, and it was almost like a click in my brain. I can remember it very distinctly. I was like, oh, it's not serious. And that made a very big impact on me. It was like, this is, they're playing around. It's not necessarily a joke. The lyrics aren't a joke, but it's a story. It's a silly story, kind of. It's like a horror movie in words. And that had a huge impact, that this was play, that this was fun, that it wasn't taking itself seriously. I absolutely loved that. And I've got to be honest, I struggle to see many heavy metal bands who actually have serious lyrics at the end of the day, from an intellectual or an emotional perspective. I know there are people who take the lyrics very seriously, and there are a few bands that I like who do, but like the vast majority of heavy metal, it's more about being expressive and imaginative. It's more about like big feelings and big stories and crazy ideas or atmosphere. And I really like that about the genre. Obviously, when you're talking about music like, say, Dylan or something else, there's a lot more depth usually to lyrics. But yeah, like with metal for me, it was always about the enjoyment of the kind of crazy aspect of or the imaginative aspect of it. And then when me and Joe started writing them for no purpose other than to make each other laugh, that was a big driver in it. So once the band started, we write a lot of songs that have a bit of humor or a bit of a skewed kind of attitude to the lyrics. And I think it just seemed real to us to do that. It would have been embarrassing to kind of turn around to the lads and go, this song is about my feelings. And then, okay, play it and I'm going to get upset. It's not who we are.
So do you feel like that kind of like humorous theming of metal lyrics is something that distinguishes metal lyrics from non-metal lyrics? Like, do you think like because of its typically humorous like bent, like you can tell the difference between lyrics of your average metal band and lyrics of your average non-metal band?
I don't know about that. To my mind, humor is the thing that's kind of shot through all guitar music, through all rock music for sure. Like Chuck Berry, My Ding-a-Ling, and riding along in the automobile, and you know what I mean. Even like Rocket 88 has like joke lyrics, and Hound Dog is a joke song. To me, it probably comes from a Black American vaudeville tradition that came over into rock music, rock and roll music, and it's in heavy metal. But Joe, I wouldn't say the average heavy metal band are writing lyrics that they're knowingly being funny about.
No, and like I think if we're like kind of honest, writing unbelievable lyrics like the Beatles or Bob Dylan and stuff like that can be very, very, very difficult. And there can be a lot of generic lyrics, like I make demos for bands, and like there's a million bands who come in, and the lyrics are like Back to the Pain or whatever, So I think from the get-go we were very much like, right, the song should be about stuff the way Iron Maiden songs were about historical things or cool movies and things like that. And that just seemed like a no-brainer. But yeah, like I think that you do see it in other music, like Dylan, Al Stewart. There's a whole bunch of people who've written brilliant historical songs or songs with like witty, funny lyrics in them as well. But that's a kind of very different. That's more highbrow. This is more like not quite pie in the face, but
pop. It's kind of pop culture is a big part of it. I think heavy metal came about after the big explosion in pop culture in the 50s and 60s. We had teenage culture and you had alternative culture emerging, and I think pop culture has always played a massive part in it. Black Sabbath are named after a horror movie. Judas Priest are named after a Bob Dylan song. We're already at the start. We were already at a second or third generation of pop eating itself, as they say. So I think like pop culture, movies, music, video games, the context that we live in, media-wise, is always a big part of what we do. And I think it's a big part of loads of other bands, like Evil write songs about movies all the time. Anthrax did it as well. Metallica have songs about movies. Iron Maiden have songs about movies. Like it's kind of it's in the ether there. In that way, we're quite typical in that we do that. Like it's quite typical to pick a cool film and write a song based on it. In this genre.
So when you think about, heavy or extreme metal lyrics that you really enjoy, do you lean more towards stuff that is either humorous or kind of a bit self-aware of what it is? Or is there something else that also attracts you to like when you think of a good lyric, what kind of goes into making that good rather than just bad or mid, something you've heard before?
Well, I suppose the highfalutin answer is, if we're talking about lyrics of any kind, the answer is something startling and true, something that you hear and you're like, wow, there's actually a bit of truth in that. And sometimes that can be a heavy metal thing where you just hear it and you're like, it's an unusual observation, maybe sometimes. Like one of my favorite heavy metal lyrics is from Elimination by Overkill. He says, spending on all you had and wishing for a little more. If I'm staring at the ceiling, then I must be lying on the floor. And there's just something really nice. There's something kind of true in it. There's like a wee constant want, and he sounds confused and he sounds out of it, and you can picture it in your head, and it sounds real. I think that's amazing. Like like Bob Dylan, Last Night I Danced with a Stranger. She just reminded me you're the one. You're like it actually. It sounds like you're hearing the truth from somebody. Like they're still in their guts out or something. I think like every other piece of art, when you see something that reflects something real about life as you experience it, or as the vast majority of people experience it, that makes you go, wow, this is important, or this is good, or I remember this. I think then in metal more specifically, because the music is generally fast or aggressive, there's not a lot of room in heavy metal compared to, let's say, folk music. It's well and good for Nick Drake to have very meaningful lyrics because he has a very slow song to sing over. In the likes of thrash metal, you have very little space, so you have to be very concise. And other weird technical stuff comes into it, like the syllables that you use, like the sounds. Damo, our guitar player, is excellent at writing lyrics that use all the right syllables. He can give you the correct p, b, m, k at the right moment. And I think when I hear that, that's also really good. Joe, what's your perspective on the heavy metal lyrics? What appeals to you?
Like going back to your question, a lot of the lyrics that you see these days are kind of informed by what we would call like kind of metal English, which is like, the original bands like Sodom and Destruction and Sepulture were using. And like in a lot of the cases, they couldn't speak English, or they were using a thesaurus to get the lingo together. But what I'm saying is that I think a lot of the people who are writing lyrics in that over nowadays are doing it from a kind of, it's not disingenuous. They're doing it in a way where I think they're taking it more seriously than the people had intended it to be taken in the first place. So you definitely see a lot of that. In terms of like lyrical content for bands, you do see bands using a lot more kind of like emotional lyrics now. Like I think in the 80s, probably writing songs like In My Darkest Hour was kind of the exception. People tend to write songs about good times and stuff like that. And it was, into the 90s now where you start to see songs more about people's feelings and stuff, predominantly in lyrics.
Yeah.
So do you think metal's like a bit more comfortable like expressing feelings in 2023 than 1980?
Yeah, and I couldn't tell you what the broad swathe of heavy metal is doing right now. I really don't know. It seems to me that it's sort of, there's a panoply of stuff going on. There's just crazy amount of things happening in metal now. There's extremely flippant, fun stuff. There's very grave, serious, dress up as a candelabra with all twigs all over you, kind of satanic stuff. I don't know. I honestly don't really know. Like, the further on we get into this as well, the less concerned we are about what people are doing around us. And we just become more focused on what satisfies us. What satisfies us creatively, what's a cool idea, and how do we work together,
So just for you as a band then, what would you say is like maybe the biggest change in how you all approach lyric writing now compared to say your first album?
What do you think, Joe?
I think like probably at the start there was like a big huge list of ideas of stuff that we were very adamant that we wanted to write songs about, zombie George Romero movies, like Superman films, and this kind of went on, and then it started becoming more nuanced, and it started being about things like toys that we used to play with when we were growing up and things like that. And yeah, I don't know. Like, I think it's certainly changed. One of the things I love about the band is that there's constantly been a very like collaborative vibe about the lyrics, and it's mattered to everyone. There's a lot of bands where people will be like, I don't really care about the lyrics, or the lyrics mean something only to the singer, you know, and it's never really been that way with us. It's always been something where it's like, cool, this is an idea that everyone can get on board with, and everyone is more than welcome to like pitch in if they like it, you know.
Yeah, I think on the first album, as Joe said, you know, we were finding our feet. This was a new thing to us. We were like, we might never get to make another record, and it was like 2 years worth of music at that point, maybe 3 years worth of music that we'd written. So it was very much finding our feet, but like exploring the idea that you could be funny, that you could write about movies that you love, that you could reference pop culture that you like. And I think that was the deal at that time. It was just kind of like a big shopping spree, you trying to grab all the references and all the touch points for the metal that you like. Whereas I think as time went on, we've definitely become more considered in how we write our lyrics. You develop, like, it's a bit of a highfalutin thing to say, but you develop a bit of craft about it. So, you know, with the new album, whether you're writing a song that's like a political message, or, you know, it's a story, like a ghost story or something, as you might do in our songs, you spend a lot more time thinking about which words you're choosing. You spend a lot more time about sort of getting the message right, and you get good at that over time. You know, obviously you lose a bit of the freedom that you probably had when you first start. I think it was much easier to just write a song in 2 minutes back then, but I think the craft gets better. And you know, people who like our band do like the lyrics, and they find them smart. And you know, that was, you know, speaking about lyrics that you love, I've always thought Motorhead's lyrics are amazing, because Lemmy was definitely a guy who had like his attitude and was very cool and stuff, but he never hid the fact that he was an intelligent person, you know, that he was a guy with a certain degree of education, you know, and who had like an intellectual way of looking at the world. And when he spoke in interviews and when he wrote lyrics, he was very forthright about that. He didn't dumb himself down. I think a lot of other people, like, let's get an example here, Phil Anselmo. Phil Anselmo's family owned a big posh Italian restaurant in the town where he's from. He is not from the Skids. Anselmo's is a massive Italian restaurant. His family are rich. He's rich. He went to a really good school. But he dumbs himself down for the music. Do you know what I mean? Dumbs himself down for the music. And I've always admired people who didn't do that, who are just real about who they are. You know, maybe deep down he is a moron. He loves doing Hitler salutes. You know, but sure. You know, he'll never hear this anyway.
Yeah, no, there goes our Pantera interview.
Yeah, oh no.
Oh no.
Yeah. Well, maybe he'll come on just to talk about what a prick I am. Who knows? But yeah, like so I think we've always we've never shied away from having a sort of a bit of a brain about what we're doing, even if what we're doing is pretending to be stupid.
Well, before we start diving into those lyrics and themes, we did actually, what we usually ask, where a given band stands on the perennial metal lyrics, pure fantasy or reflective of the personal question. But your lyrics clearly involve, a lot of clear statements of opinion over the years, as you've, kind of alluded to. So we instead wanted to ask about a tweet that you made about your lyrics in April of this year. In this tweet, it's a good one. Don't worry. Well, in this particular tweet, I can't speak for others, but you wrote, interesting fact, most metal people who criticize us for being unserious or goofy didn't grow up during a civil war like we did. Go ahead and write your wee songs about hatred and murder. Must be great to be a tourist. Can you elaborate about how this upbringing affected your approach to lyrics? And was this something that you kind of considered and affected your lyrics from the very beginning, your very first release?
That's a tricky one, isn't it, Joe? Because I don't know if we've written many. We haven't really written any songs directly about the Troubles, have we? Really?
I don't think we've written songs. But no, we have wrote a song called 2016. Back in 2016.
Yeah, but that was more about Irish identity, kind of, like the revolutionary kind of aspect around.
What I would say, like, Philly can defend his tweet thus, but what I would say is that growing up in a kind of post-conflict society, it's kind of, we were teenagers whenever it went from people being murdered, like, very regularly on the streets in Northern Ireland to the peace accord and stuff. So we saw kind of society changing, and I think it was something that started going into our lyrics where, I guess in the mid 2000s, when we started becoming more politically aware and started seeing more, alt-right kind of stuff. Because it felt like really if we were going to write lyrics about Northern Ireland and our personal experience, that would only really be reflective of people from Northern Ireland, whereas if we're going to write a political song, we thought it would probably be better to do it on a bigger scale and something that we could see was affecting everywhere, like fascism or whatever,
And I think when the band started too, there was sort of, I think we actually did talk about it. There was a bit of this is not a great medium for very serious messages about the thing that was still so raw. I don't think we were like, we're going to write songs about the Troubles, because we were like, the music didn't feel serious enough and we had other songs that were funny and stuff. So we were kind of, as Joe said, shooting for like more broad targets. I think what I was saying with that tweet was there is a great degree of luxury in being from all these other places that didn't have the insane problems where we come from. I've always found it a bit of a laugh that nice middle class boys from Sweden were stabbing each other and burning down churches where there's fucking, or Norway or whatever, where there's nothing wrong, where nothing is wrong. Since the end of World War II, nothing has been going wrong, right? And like, they're all well-fed, well-educated Protestant boys who go mad doing this stuff. Whereas the place we were from, Joe's house was blown. Joe's first memory is his house being blown, right? Our lives are actively affected by it. And I think to some extent, whether it was an active avoidance of trying to fucking deal with it because we were trying to grow up out of it, or whether it was just a refusal to get too involved in it because it didn't seem like our music was a good vehicle for discussing that, we just decided not to lean into that and then move away from it, and I think being unserious might in some ways be us coping with that. I don't know. We're not going to put ourselves out there as being like we're the voice of a generation on this, because we're not. And I don't think Irish culture has done a very good job of assimilating it yet either, to be honest. Northern Irish culture. There is, now, Joe, there's bands like Kneecap and stuff who are like a hip hop group, and they kind of come from like a Catholic side of the tracks, and their stuff's quite like aggressively Republican, but all those lads were born after 1998, so they didn't live in it. Do you know what I mean? So I think what we have is you have Dairy Girls and you have Kneecap and you have stuff like this, but I don't know if, like, maybe Dairy Girls is probably the best effort Northern Irish culture has made to address this so far, but we don't feel like we're the people to bring that forward, or not at that time. However, we are, and always have been, happy to talk about it and happy to talk about the sense of identity that we have, because I think me and Joe particularly, our sense of Irish identity is quite different from the other lads in the band, because they're from the Republic and their experience of Irishness was never under any question growing up, whereas ours was constantly in an environment where half of people weren't Irish or didn't identify as Irish, and some of them hated that you were Irish. So I don't know, maybe that's what I was trying to say. It's like, we literally grew up in a war, so don't expect us to write about skulls, blood, death, and violence, because that was literally the experience of everyone around us. Leave that to the Anselmos of the world.
Yeah, okay, he's not coming on the podcast at all now. Well, the lead into humor is something we want to talk about as well, because as your tweet references, you've long invoked humor in your lyrics, and wondered, when you first started early on, did you have any trepidations about this? Like you mentioned that there's been, the tweet itself mentions backlash. Did you expect backlash for leaning into kind of a humorous vibe on not all, but many songs?
I don't know. I was probably in a bad mood going looking for fights writing that tweet, to be honest, because we don't often get a lot of great, we do.
Not really. I suppose it's something that, like, probably we, like, if we read it in a review or something like that, where they'll say, yeah, all these songs are about, pizzas and stuff like that. But I think in terms of humour, like, because, again, me and Philly had kind of grown up with, like, a big sense of humour, and whenever our first guitar player, Luke, joined the band, he had really a very similar kind of sense of humour to us. And, like, he kind of, from the get-go, was like, right, okay, if we're going to write a song called Hell Trucker or Zombie Command, we have to do it slightly tongue-in-cheek. We're not going to do it like Death would have written a song of that nature, So, yeah, but like, that's from my point of view. I think from the get-go, there was never any consideration of should the lyrics be like Slayer and just be serious and stuff like that. It was always going to be like, no, there should be like not goofy, but like it could be, and like I guess the way we would sort of describe our lyrics is they're always really, really well informed. Like they're really, really well researched pieces of nerdy history that we're commenting on. Like
Yeah, and I think with us, yeah, sometimes you'll catch a comment from people. Bands do read the things people say about them on the internet. They do. Do you know Steve Harris reads everything? Pretty much everything people say about Iron Maiden, Steve Harris reads that. And he gives out about it, which I think is a mistake. I don't think reading it is a mistake. I think giving out about it is a mistake because there's nothing you can do about other people's attitudes. Sometimes you do catch people being down on the band. But there's two things to that. It doesn't matter because there are people who aren't doing anything themselves. It's not like I've caught Bob Dylan going, these guys absolutely suck. And destroyed my vision, one of my musical heroes or whatever. Like it's not Springsteen ragging on you, it's just some dork. And the other thing is, I think the vast majority of people who don't like what we do just don't listen to us, which is why we're not Metallica. I think we're not Metallica because we act like this. I think if our songs were like, hey, 1, 2, 3, here we go, we'd probably be a much bigger band. Or really serious or whatever. So, I don't hold that against people. That's part of the path we chose, that's where we're at.
So we did look at the Reddit discourse about Gama Bomb on Twitter, and while the vast majority of discussions... Well, it is mostly like very positive, but we did notice that, the kind of takes that you're talking about, calling your lyrics, too silly, too goofy, or whatever. But we're more interested in like, where does this idea come from? Like, why do you think that there are people out there arguing that metal can't or shouldn't be, goofy or silly or humorous, given that, there's a long history of humorous lyrics in the genre, as you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, well, obviously we don't agree with that.
Go on ahead.
Oh, no, I'm interested in what you think. Go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say is I think that with heavy metal, you can sometimes see a propensity for people to be in a stage of arrested adolescence when it comes to musical snobbery. Now, what usually happens to people is the older they get, the wider the sort of range of music that they listen to becomes, and then they stop becoming obsessed or getting annoyed by what kind of bands songs are about, But I think with heavy metal, sometimes you'll meet people who are in their 50s who only listen to one certain type of music and still hate listening to Bruce Springsteen or something like that. And that's fine, but I wouldn't be surprised to see that those people who have been extremely sheltered in terms of the lyrics and music they listen to, not liking our lyrics,
Yeah. Pardon me, I'm a bit froggy. Yeah, I think as well, while the internet has been amazing for bringing us closer to other people, it has also created the false appearance that all opinions are valid and also that all debate is valid. What we're kind of getting into when we're saying like, oh, what do we think of people saying this on Reddit? What you're really seeing is you're seeing hundreds of people's discrete opinions that otherwise would just exist whenever they're having a pint with somebody, but they're written on the internet, and that makes it feel like these things are really real and valid and that they'll last forever. But the truth is that's utterly ephemeral. Like loads of people have nice things to say about us. Lots of people have things to say about us that aren't nice. And then billions of other people have no fucking idea we exist and never will. And that's fine. So like what we're trying to do with this is, number one, we're trying to do something that satisfies us. I think it is ultimately a selfish kind of project. It's a thing that we like to do. It makes us feel good. It lets us express ourselves creatively, and it's part of our friendship and our relationship. So that's the number one thing. Number two is we're trying to do that for the people who like it. And then 3 below that is everyone else. And that doesn't matter because they are at best people who might find out and get on board. But everyone else, if they don't, it doesn't really matter. I think like years ago when the band first started, I would get in arguments with people on the internet and stuff like an idiot because I too was falling into this perception trap that this was real and meaningful. But it's not, it's just talk on the internet. And, it's very important to remember as well in life, like anyone who makes an effort and goes and does something, whether that's making dinner for 5 people or whether that's making records or making movies, the person who does stuff is the one who's open to criticism. This dinner's too cold. I don't like your music. Your movie sucks. The people who do nothing are the ones who are there giving out the criticism. Do you know what I mean? There's a reason it's not Bob Dylan saying this band absolutely sucks because he's doing stuff. You know what I mean? He's too busy being good at doing his thing. It's people on the internet who are saying that. So it's very important to remember that one of the side effects of being a person who actually tries to achieve things or make things is you get grief. You can't take it personally.
Well, all right, that's great. So with all that set up, let's kind of move into your lyrics specifically, because we mentioned these themes of humor and stuff, but we want to talk about the things you've actually done with that. And we actually want to talk about gore for a second, because you mentioned earlier that you don't have a lot of violent kind of gory songs, but your earlier albums did contain a number of tracks which do discuss gore, generally in the form of zombies eating people. As in the lines, zombies are drinking our guts tonight, or disembodied bodies coming back from the dead, disembowel the hands, take your brains from your head. And there are also a few slasher film style lyrics like swing from a string from a blood-soaked hand, victims at random, smacked for a thrill. And you have songs like Return to Blood Castle, which note that there is a vat of brains and it's brain mashing day, or the cannibals are in the streets, all flesh must be eaten, which is unsurprisingly a gore-centered song. But since 2015...
It has a line about your foot comes out your mouth, which I think is one of the best lyrics I've ever written. All
right. So one of your favorite lyrics then is also, pretty gory. But we don't... sorry?
Go ahead.
Oh, what?
No, go ahead. It's such an avalanche of insane phraseology. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we do kind of overload. But since 2015's Untouchable Glory, where you do have some discussion of violence, there's no mention of explicit gore, organs, or brains on your album. Indeed, after 2008 Citizen Brain, the word zombie never again appears in your lyrics, and your newest album doesn't really have any violent content on it at all, certainly in comparison to earlier work. So we're wondering, is there this kind of move away from discussions of horror movie content, if we can call it that, something that was conscious, or is this just kind of happened? Is this the first time this has come up?
See, what you've done here, Wes, is this is the equivalent of going for dinner with a couple and then bringing up that time one of them cheated, right? Because Joe has been given out to me for about 15 years that there's no zombie songs, right? And he keeps saying, where's the zombie songs? Well, give us a zombie song. And I'm always like, write one. So, yeah, there's definitely less of that. We were doing that generally because it's funny. I think a lot of those lyrics you just read out are ridiculous, like swinging from a string. One time Damo started saying, what the most dangerous thing in the world is? A hammer on a string, because you can't predict where it's going to go. And we used to get drunk and talk to him about this, and he would go, hammer on a string, most dangerous thing in the world. Swinging around, you might hit yourself. So we played the song, And this disemboweled hands, how can your hands be disemboweled? There's no organs in your hands. Disembodied brains, is it? I think it's like just things. So a lot of it is just, a lot of that stuff was just like, okay, let's do 500% insanity with these ideas, Joe, what are your thoughts on this, and why do you think we've become massive wusses?
Yeah, well, it's so weird trying to use the word maturity on the band, isn't it?
Sex farm.
I know. But so I guess part of it is that there was a lot of that kind of stuff that we kind of felt like we had covered, we wrote quite a few songs specifically about Romero movies, or these specific horror movies that we were really, really into at the time and still love. But I guess our lyrics kind of changed a little bit around maybe 2015, where we tried to start writing songs that were a little more kind of attitude-y, and less about specific horror movies or specific things. Because all those things like Zombie Blood Nightmare, the cannibals are in the streets, Zombie Creeping Flesh, Zombie Command, those are all about specific films. And even on the new album, there's a song called The Living Dead in Beverly Hills, and it's about a specific film as well, So, we do it, but, I think probably it's over to Philly, because really a lot of in the past, maybe me and Luke would bring songs, say, let's write a song about, this horror movie or whatever. And I think nowadays the sort of song suggestions, I still do that. There was a song about Terminator 2 that I did for the last record, and there's one about Goodfellas and stuff. But yeah, I think Philly probably changed more his approach to writing horror. And you still do write horror, don't you?
I guess so. So from quite early on, from Citizen Brain and Hammer Slam, or one of those songs you referenced there, what we were doing was making up a story. It was as if this is a horror film that never existed, and I think that was the germ of what's kind of happening now. It was like, okay, you don't have to write a song about RoboCop because there's that, but you can also make up your own. You can do Three Witches, you can do Hammer Slammers, you can do all these different songs that are just purely made from whole cloth. They're just imaginary. And I think I got more and more interested in that, like some politics stuff, some like maybe some real life stuff, and then a lot of more of these imaginary stories. I find it more satisfying because you can kind of just build them totally from scratch yourself, and you can really choose what kind of imagery goes in them and that kind of thing. And I think as well, getting a bit older, I think Overkill and Judas Priest made a massive impact on me as I got older as well, just in terms of how they wrote the lyrics. And a lot of their songs, much like Thin Lizzy, they're not really about a thing. They're just kind of about the main character being cool or whatever, And I think there's a real art form. I wanted to try to crack that over the course of a few albums. Like Judas Priest is like word jigsaws. They literally used to use a thesaurus, Halford did, to find words and put them all together in really cool ways. And I like that, so I did that with lots of music. And then the Overkill thing, or Thin Lizzy thing, was more about attitude and more about you as a main character. I did that as well because I was just really digging that. Whereas now, I suppose, those things get in the way of the earlier thing. And I suppose the thing with the Zombies, well, as you pointed out, we haven't had an album with zombies on it in like 15 years. I felt like we did it so much. On some level, I was maybe worried that people were just going to go with that zombie man. But of course, we wrote those songs back at the start when we were cute and young, and people still talk about it, and we're still associated with it, so it's there. I've no doubt we probably will again write songs about zombies, but it just felt so insanely covered that it kind of needed something else, to keep you engaged.
Well, Joe mentioned the new track, Living Dead Beverly Hills, which we actually was our next question. We missed that was from a movie, but we did know, like, we interpreted it with lines like, cadaver boys, bikini girls being kind of a metaphor for rich people who are, quote, getting old but look the same. You mentioned diet fads, plastic surgery, and a hot tub filled with boiling blood. And we're wondering, like, first off, were we just completely off and this is actually just all from a movie that we missed? Or are we right that we thought this was kind of using the Living Dead theming as social critique? And if we are right in that, was there any of that in the previous stuff? Or was your early songs about zombies more just about zombies? If anything, is just about zombies.
I would say the easy answer to the second part is the earlier stuff was just about zombies, generally speaking. There wasn't much, like, although you could get highbrow and say zombies themselves are like a construct. Yeah. George Romero used them to be satirical or whatever. I think, Joe, we were pretty straight with the original songs, weren't we? Like, it was just about how cool zombies are.
Yeah, that was pretty much it. And again, it was because all those formative songs were about specific movies that we were like, right, okay, whereas yeah, I think probably by the time, some things like Zombie Blood Nightmare and the Cannibals in the Streets and things like that, or especially like We Are Going to Eat You, songs like that, We Are Going to Eat You is not about cannibalism, really, is it? It's about, society, from my point of view.
That's it. Yeah, We're Going to Eat You is about inequality, the growing inequality gap, the global 1% and all this kind of thing. With your other question that you asked us about Living Dead in Beverly Hills, a very intelligent question about quite a fun, silly song, so thank you for that. So the song title comes from Death Becomes Her, and I love that movie. I watched it all the time growing up, and turn my head right around the back. That's what happens to Meryl Streep in it. Streep in the streets, Goldie in the sack. That's referring to the two ladies in the movie. But then, what I was kind of doing with the rest of it was kind of mashed together of the kind of excessive artificial glamour of Hollywood living, which is what the film is about, with kind of sinister, morbid, rotten kind of ideas, like, as you say, cadaver boys instead of cabana boys, and muscle Mary, and shed my flesh but don't touch the hair, like vanity combined with being rotten, which I think is obviously what the theme of the film is. It's about kind of like at what price youth. So it definitely does have that to it. There's no misreading in seeing the song that way, because it is. Because the film is about that and the song is about the film. So it definitely has the same thing. If I've achieved having the same tone as the movie Death Becomes Her, we've really done something right here, lads. This is exceptional.
Good. Well, about the same time that the zombies disappear from your albums, we couldn't help but notice the sudden appearance of ninjas. Because there's the 2009's Last
Don't they
Ninjas
always appear
Unite.
suddenly?
Well, yeah, that's how it goes, you know? Yeah.
That's how ninjas are wont to show up like that, you know.
Maybe they were always on the prior albums too.
Maybe. Well, yeah, there's 2009's Last Ninjas Unite references to like a ninja school. On 2013's We Started the Fire, 2015's Ninja Untouchables, and 2020's Judo Killer. And these tracks even sometimes include Japanese vocabulary items such as kunoichi, oniwaba, and shinigami. So what led to this interest in ninjas as a theme?
Well, obviously, we're from the decade of ninjas, you know. Not since the Tokugawa shogunate has there been such interest in ninjas as in the 1980s and 90s. You know, we're ninja.
I did not expect a Tokugawa shogunate mentioned in this interview.
Well, you know, you have to have an advanced knowledge of Japanese history if you want to make heavy metal records. So we were always into it. You know, in my opinion, Joe, it's Damo. Right?
Yeah. Okay. Me and Philly had been huge fans. Again, go back to whenever we were writing lyrics on Christmas cards as kids. We would write songs about the bad guys from Enter the Dragon and things like that. So we'd always been fans. And when Damo had joined the band, he was obviously a big fan as well. And he brought the song Last Ninjas Unite to the band, you know. And the lyrics are really great. Because there's so many lines in it. For me, the nuance, one of the lines is his pocket is full of crickets. And I was all like, I didn't get it. Like, well, that's because he walks with the silence. He brings the silence with him everywhere he goes. But yeah, it is. It's probably Damo. Damo did that, was the kind of guy who instigated it. And then because we'd been recording records, you know, spend a month hanging about in a tour bus or whatever, we were watching lots and lots of crap films. And then in the last 10 years, with the explosion of films on YouTube, really, all those films are now completely available. So there's just endless amounts of amazing kung fu films out there.
What's cool about
we'll have to write songs about them.
It's bizarrely self-fulfilling because, you know, we were writing songs and, you know, just being nerdy white kids who like ninja movies and love Bruce Lee and all that kind of thing. And then we found out whenever, you know, obviously things come on a bit more with the internet and stuff, Japanese people love those songs. Even though we're actually being probably extremely insensitive about aspects of the culture, they loved all that. Japanese people, they love Last Ninjas Unite, they love Ninja Untouchables. And then we got invited to go to Tokyo and we played 2 shows. And just the reception for those songs about ninjas was unbelievable. You know, people were chanting along and going totally crazy. And there was no sense of any bruised national identity or offense being taken. People just found it really good fun and liked that these white guys, that these gaijin had written songs about this kind of thing. And then off the back of that, we started writing more songs about Japanese stuff. So we wrote Judo Killer on the last album, and one of our fans from Japan, Tomoe, she's on it. She does the Ich ni san chi, which is really cool. We got a Japanese person who's a fan of the band on it, you know. And we have a song that didn't make it to Bats called Nunchucks, which will be on the next album. So, you know, it's fun. It's fun, you know. Like AC/DC have 50 songs about rock and roll night. We have 15 songs about ninjas. You know.
Well, wait, so how did this? You mentioned that through the internet you found out that you had Japanese fans. Was that YouTube comments or emails, or what was the connection?
You know, the strongest place for Japanese people that we found is Twitter.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's where I tend to see it most. And it was, you know, the last 6 years or so. So that's great, you know. Yeah, it's pretty mad. I think they enjoy our commitment to nonsense. Yeah, I think is what Japanese people like. And they love that we have a pet monster and that we bring a monster to the shows with us. Guys, I in 10 minutes, I have to go off. I'm sorry about that, but with 10 minutes, I'm sorry.
All right, we'll move as fast as we can, then we'll finish up with
Yeah, finish what we finished. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, well, yeah, we're gonna ask you why you didn't have any ninjas on the new album, but those track came in the next album, so that's exciting. You do on the new album. talk about Egypt. So you have the Egyptron song, which happens with the Iron Pharaoh programmed by Anubis, full of Ramses joke. And the Egyptian mythos hasn't really been something you've talked about since 2009 with Mummy Invasion. What led to the revival and interest in this theming?
The word Egyptron popped into my head, and I was like, "That's good. That's really good." And, then what I always do is immediately Google whatever popped into my head plus the lyrics, and nothing come up. And I was like, it's free real estate, as they say. I was like, this is great. I shouted Joe. I think that I wrote most of the lyrics in one go. Sent them to Joe. He was like, yeah, great. Then he had this Maiden-y type riff, and I was like, well, this fits perfectly over that. I think more the interesting part, Joe, was how we got the Egyptian Lover, the guest on it, the hip hop guy, Egyptian Lover.
And like that, that kind of came with the parcel of saying, right, let's try and write a Iron Maiden type kind of power slave number. And we had been a fan of the Egyptian Lover for years, and we knew that he like specifically dealt with Egypt type stuff. So we're like, if you don't ask, you don't get. We just sent him a message, and like that was the cool thing about it, like just being able to collaborate, Philly's lyrics and his ideas and the Egyptian Lover's ideas in one track, and they're both exactly on the same page,
Yeah. And he's a legend. His name is up there in lights at the Grammys when they did the 50 years of hip hop celebration, Egyptian Lover. So we DM'd him, he got involved, and he brought an amazing attitude to it. Most heavy metal people will not know who he is, but we do, and we love him. So it's very important to us that he's on there. But yeah, you're right, we hadn't touched it since Mummy Invasion. Growing up, like most pale, skinny boys, I had a period of being obsessed with Egypt as a kid, and then, obsessed with Vikings, then obsessed with dinosaurs, obsessed with the Titanic disaster, then World War II. You know how it goes. And I don't know, I suppose it's always in the background there that's interesting. But for this song, it was just, once the word popped into my head, I was like, it's ridiculous that this doesn't exist. It's almost like it demands to exist now because of this. But it's a fun song. I think it's a song that's hopefully it's gonna really be a statement of intent, because the album starts with it and it's like nearly 6 minutes long, and it's a rap and stuff, so hopefully people get that.
So what about the frequent references to Satanism and the occult then? Is this coming from like a similar or different place? Because you have songs like, discussing devils or witchcraft, titles like 6616, or references to an engine number 666, or lines like by the goat, by Satan's beard on the new track Materialize. So is this like this kind of discussion of like Satanism and the occult coming from like, the metal space where it's very kind of a prolific theme? Or, is there another reason for you drawing on this?
So what's your take on this?
I think that when we were kids, a lot of it was influenced by stuff like The Devil Rides Out, Hammer horror movies, those old sort of like that kind of version of Satanism, And like whenever we started writing songs, a lot of them were influenced as well by EC Comics, and you saw the same kind of Satanism at play, that people in hoods and stuff like that. And to us, that's kind of that's the incarnation of evil that we like talking about, as in weird black masses and stuff, instead of, I don't know, fucking human evil, I suppose, really.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that's always been a trope in rock music, isn't it, really? And none of us are religious, but we were all raised Catholic. So, the supernatural and the theatrical and the ceremonial are big parts of that. And, like Satanism is a reaction to and part of Catholicism, because Catholics believe in demons and Satan and the afterlife, and, much more than, say, Jews do. They really fucking believe in that, right? So we're religious people, but we're coming from our context. So the best and coolest version of people we know is that one that we grew up with. So I suppose writing songs about it, and every rock band has songs about that kind of thing, generally speaking. And I find it a really fun. It's basically like fancy dress. So it's fancy dress, music about fancy dress. Because, as people who don't believe in God, we don't believe in Satan either. But like, also the nonsense that there is and the imagery around, the fetishism around it is good fun, I think, to write about and to write songs about. It's just within that horror movie thing. With a song like Materialize, I was actually ripping off Hell Ripper, who I really like. Their song Bastard of Hades, I think, is an amazing tune. And I was copying James's chorus.
Oh.
So James, don't tell him.
He's actually the episode before you.
Yeah.
we interviewed him. His episode's coming out just before yours, so it's him and then you guys.
Well, I'm gonna see him on Saturday. I'm interviewing him on Saturday. We're interviewing each other. Yeah, at Derby at this festival. How does it feel to have me stealing your ideas, James? Million. I better get back to the grind.
All right, take care.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Cheers, guys. Thanks so much.
All right. Well, thanks for hanging around.
No worries at all, guys.
Differences in theming aside, one thing that has been common in your work outside of kind of horror movies and things like that is social commentary, and it appears on every single album you've made. Like back in 2006, you had songs like "Racists," directly critiquing not just racism but historical fascists like Sir Oswald Mosley. And since all then, your albums have had at least one kind of direct statement of political positioning, be it 2009's anti-BNP Mussolini Mosh, the 2018 track Alt-Reich, which produces the concluding thesis of "We must clarify, all Nazis must die," or tracks like "Don't Get Your Haircut" and "Secular Soft" in the new album, which respectively discuss a friend becoming a Thatcherite and growing hard and full of spite, and using a metaphorical saw to break free of what you call the prison of religious law. You mentioned pushback from using humor, but has there been any for politics, or is this something that you feel is kind of more commonly found and enjoyed in thrash?
No, like to be honest, it's something that we find a lot of pushback, because I guess anyone, like so many bands don't talk about politics because they're immediately aware, especially in the United States, that you're going to alienate about 50% of your audience, But at the same time, we are, opinionated people, and, we kind of all feel very, very comfortable, with our opinions, and we have done since day one, And I think part of that actually came from Nuclear Assault. We were big fans of them, and, they used to write socially conscious songs, And that was something that we were really, really kind of respectful. We knew that we didn't want to overload it, though, because there were some bands basically where if it all became political, you could very, very soon just be playing for hardcore people, and that's it,
So there's a conscious balance between the total amount of content on an album?
Yeah, absolutely. And, in the past, there's probably been some albums where there's been more political commentary and ones with less. And that's not necessarily reflective of what's happening at that time in the world. We try and do something topical every record if we possibly can. But again, I guess our experience now as guys who are in our 40s compared to guys when we were in our 20s is very different,
What would you say is different about it?
Well, I think that whenever you're in your 20s, we've always been quite a, left-wing band, but I guess we were more about, anti-fascist marches and that kind of thing. Whereas the older we got, it was more about reflecting what we saw was going on in the world around us and society, instead of, being, a call to arms, so to speak,
Well, a very different but consistent theme or topic of discussion that we noted is one that we haven't seen so far in over 40 interviews, which is discussions of alcohol. So your lyrics to date do mention booze 3 times, beer 7 times, and drinking some kind of alcohol 24 times. So this all stops the new album, though, where there's no mention of drinking or drug use at all, beyond a mention of Padre, chomping a stogie. So what brought you to this change? Is this part of that kind of development that you were talking about just before, or is this, potentially related to recording during lockdowns?
I guess we did that "Living for the Lockdown" single in 2019, and that was probably quite reflective of where we were, because we were spending most of our time sitting around in our toilets drinking beer and stuff like that. And again, yeah, you're probably right in the sense that whenever we were younger, a lot of our time would have been spent, some of the lyrics are all about sitting drinking beer and under canals and things like that. Yeah, and that was part of being young. There's still part of our life that's like that. But, funny enough, we were actually discussing, we've been doing festivals over the summer and stuff. And a lot of the times we were in bed by midnight, you know. So like maybe we are getting older. Part of it, I guess, some of the guys in the band have kids, you know, and like you know, they're getting up early regardless. So, but yeah, I think, you know, it's also probably something a little bit like, you know, the thing about going back to the zombies was that I think that a lot of the stuff that we really liked, we had kind of covered. And I think we felt a little bit like with drinking on this record, because we did write, you know, as Philly said, we wrote maybe about 30 songs in total. So there were some songs about drinking that didn't make it onto the album. And I think it was probably just because we felt we had so many, you know, so it was like it didn't seem like something that we really needed to revisit this quickly, you know.
So are you feeling like, you know, as you get older, beyond just kind of responsibilities, etc., that you are wanting to tread like some kind of new ground, or just revisit or move to topics that might be a little bit more fresh for you, even if it's just personally?
Yeah, I guess that's it. You know, like, because you know, on some of the albums, the earlier albums, there were songs that were particularly satanic or whatever about black masses, and then maybe they weren't on a few more albums, and then the last two records have had stuff like that. So I think stuff like that comes in phases, you know. So I would be surprised if there was another song about drinking, you know, somewhere down the line. And I suppose part of it is we did a cover of a song by the Pogues, or like a traditional Irish band. And like they're kind of very famous for kind of boozing and stuff like that. So maybe we felt we kind of scratched that itch with doing that this time around, you know?
So another feature of your albums is that there's always been clear smatterings of Irish and then British and Irish English varieties, as in lines like "loads of crake." My pronunciation is going to be awful here. I apologize just throughout. "Stitch up like a kipper," "what a swizz," "two port a shite," "you had your pints," "off your gourd," "don't give a fig," "a rakish all boldy," "oiks," and references to cigarettes as fags and fegs across earlier albums. And then there's the Irish line "Slán go fuil me auld slibilhin," which I believe is "goodbye for now, beloved trickster" on the newest album, along with British spellings like tire with a Y. Is this all just a consequence of, you know, that's where you're from, so that's how you write, or is including distinct markers of these language varieties in your work something you feel is important to your band and identity and that you do consciously?
Like, it is something we definitely do consciously. You know, I think trying to involve some form of local colloquialisms or whatever is something that we've always tried to do with our lyrics. You know, even going back to the first album, we would try and include some language that was kind of nearly specific to us. There's a song on the first album called "Nuke the Skeets," and skeets is like a very local term from like Newry or Belfast that refers to kind of like, you know, guys in tracksuits walking around with gold chains or whatever, like, you know, trailer park boys type people, like, or whatever. But anyway, so like we've always tried to include stuff like that in our lyrics on purpose. And like, I don't think that there was ever too much of a conversation saying, will everybody get this? Like, maybe some people will get it, maybe some people won't get it, you know. And there's something about that, about whenever people are enjoying lyrics, everybody has a totally different level of enjoyment. Some people, it's just there beside a cool guitar riff, or, you know, maybe they love drums or whatever, you know. So I think it is totally dependent on case by case. If that's the kind of thing people pick up on and like about us, great. But, you know, it's more probably for our amusement than you know, what we would see as a trademark of the band.
I'm really glad you mentioned that Skeets thing, because I saw that when I was preparing this interview, and I Googled it to try to find out what it was, and I could not find an answer. It was like it was not on the internet at all. I was like, what's a skeet? And I couldn't get it. And so I was like, oh, it must be a movie I don't know, or something like that. I thought they were like some kind of alien species or something.
There's one film in particular, which Philly was here to tell you. He could probably tell you how many it's in, but there's a Mel Brooks movie called Blazing Saddles from 1974. And there are lines from it. It must be in at least like 7 or 8 of our songs. They just somehow slip in. And I guess it's because us as guys, it's informed so much of how we talk. And, you know, whenever someone says something funny, maybe someone will reply with a line from a movie, and lines from like our day to day, or like, I guess, quotes from movies from our day to day life make it into songs very, very frequently like that, you know.
And we also noticed that on the new album, the song "Mask of Anarchy" borrows directly from the British poet Percy Shelley's 1819 poem of the same name, an ode to nonviolent resistance and potential origin of the phrase, we are many, they are few. Can you let us in on what led you to adopt this poem for your lyrics and the process of arranging a poem with some, 370 lines across 91 stanzas into a song?
Yeah. So our old guitar player, Luke Graham, he's always been a very politically right-on kind of person. And he actually, I think on the last record, he co-wrote one of the songs with Philly. But this time round, he just suggested this poem to us. He said, I'd been watching the Peterloo movie, and I think Philly had as well, which is about, a massacre that happened in England over, workers' rights in the 1800s. So Shelley wrote this big long stanza in response to that, because he was kind of famous for his romantic poetry and stuff. And this was kind of a bit of a departure. But yeah, so Philly took the whole thing, and there were some parts that were obvious, the we are many, the few line just kind of seemed that it would work. I had sent him a demo just that week, I guess, and it just so happened that it worked really well for the chorus. So the verses, it was just a case of trying to find lines that we thought really kind of would relate to now, because I guess some of the language from the poem is very much of its time,
So you wanted stuff that sounds modern?
Yeah, because I think with the original poem, it would be very easy to date the song to be in about that specific thing, as in the Peterloo massacre, But we didn't want to do that. We wanted it to be a general statement of intent, and I guess the best way of doing that really was to try and pick through and find the stuff that we could relate to, I don't know, what we saw is going on in the world right now, and then use those lines, And I guess, it's taking some artistic license really, isn't it? Because it's not as if he was there to say, yeah, that's fine, you can interpret my song or poem this way if you like. We were doing that, but I'm sure there's been worse said about him.
So another song we wanted to ask about on the new album was Speed Funeral, because in other interviews you've mentioned that the song is about being launched into space on a rocket when you die. And you mentioned that it's potentially caused by the fact that you're, quote, middle-aged men now, so maybe death is on our minds a bit more. We've actually talked to a few artists this year who have mentioned thoughts of death as an inspiration, such as the singers specifically of Psy and Fallujah. Fallujah, sorry, I don't know why I pronounced it like that. But their approach was quite different. One mentioned the death of his father, and the other kind of viewed death as something that unified humanity. And they definitely didn't have lines like rest in speed, rev it up and let it RIP, no time to cry at a speed funeral, casket blast the time-space fabric. So we've discussed, humor in general earlier, but on songs like this, are you using humor as a way to kind of discuss or work through serious issues? Is there a catharsis involved in writing a track about death beyond that just caused by creating humor?
Damo and Philly would be big fans of Flann O'Brien, who's an Irish writer from the 1940s. And he would frequently have bits about Irish wakes and death and stuff like that. So there was a lot of the language in the lyrics of that we would find very common at Irish wakes. Some of the lines in the song would be direct quotes from things that people would say. He looks just like he's sleeping, is a line that people would say at Irish wakes, So there was a lot of that language that kind of went in there. And part of the rest of it was that it was one of those things that whenever you're a kid, you discuss, whenever I die, I want to be, launched off on a rocket into space, that kind of attitude. But yeah, it's a topic that we just thought would be fun, and because we wanted to write a really fast song, we're just thinking right, okay, I want it to be about speed, something so. But it was nice, as I said, again, it's one of those songs that probably is a little bit more local because there's so much, kind of Irish jab in the lyrics, whereas some of the other songs would be very Materialize is it's very specific,
Well, as you've discussed at length, aside from poetry, there is a very kind of clear source of inspiration for your lyrics, which is, of course, film. So beyond the zombie and the Ninjas that we've already discussed, you also have songs like Kurt Russell and Smoke the Blow with William Dafoe, which reference actors directly. The track We Respect You is a love letter to multiple actors and directors. Songs like She's Not My Mother Todd, Shere Khan, and Beverly Hills RoboCop are obviously based around movies or movie scenes here, Terminator 2, Jungle Book, and RoboCop. And then you've got horror tracks like Evil Voices contain lines like who what would have thought my hand could do that, which appears to reference Evil Dead. While we didn't note any obvious film references on the new album, other than one we talked about earlier, songs like Bats have a campy horror film feel to them. And the album's cover art directly links to an old horror movie poster and kind of comic styles. So obviously, just asking you why isn't a very interesting question. So we wanted to kind of use this tendency to draw on film to talk more broadly about the links between music and film. So could you give us a sense of what the kind of process is like of drawing on, these films for inspiration, but also kind of using music specifically as a place to kind of send up, praise, or reimagine film as a different art form?
It's it's been something that just seemed like second nature to the band, because when we all originally got together, it was one of the bonding things that we all really loved was, these specific horror movies from whenever we grew up as kids, and even with our album artwork and t-shirts and everything right from day one. Really, I think everybody had the same experience as 5-year-olds going to video shops and going into the horror aisle and seeing all the different VHS covers, and the way that sort of excites your imagination, like you're imagining how cool this film's going to be just based on the cover of it. And sometimes you'll see interviews with James Hetfield or whatever where he's talking about the first Iron Maiden album, and he's saying the kind of same thing, saying I was buying this specifically by looking at the front cover and saying, wow, this looks cool, this excites my imagination, So yeah, that's from day one with the band. It's always been I guess at the start I would say it was our primary source of influence was horror movies or things like the Turtles, things that we wanted to talk about that were referential from our experiences growing up. And then as we got older, that probably started changing a little bit. So the movies tended to become more and more broad. As I said, things like Blazing Saddles or whatever, which maybe whenever we were 20, we were probably not as interested in writing about,
Have any of the people or artists that you've referenced ever got in touch or responded to the reference?
There was that was kind of the intent of writing the song.
Okay.
With Willem Dafoe, we were maybe he'll sue us and then we can meet him in court and apologize profusely and stuff like that. We were actually watching, me and Domo, whenever we'd be recording demos, we would watch a movie or something, and we'd been watching Platoon, and we would watch the special features on Platoon, and it was Willem Dafoe was indeed talking about smoking ganja whenever they were in wherever it was in the Philippines making the movie, and we were just like, this is hilarious. Let's write a song just about what a bizarre character Willem Dafoe is in our minds,
But has he ever reached out? Did he ever get an email from Kurt Russell or anything like that? Or
No, fortunately, so we'll just keep on sending them love letters, and one day maybe they'll appear at our funeral or something like that,
Maybe they'll
There's
check out
still
this
time,
episode.
yeah.
Okay. Well, another consistency throughout your lyrics is the use of swearing. While you don't swear on every single song, you do have swearing in most of your albums, with a total of 19 fucks or fuckings, 28 shits, or dipshits, which is a word we've never had appear in our data before. So congratulations. First band we talked to use dipshit. 12 uses of piss, 1 bitches, 2 son of a bitch, 1 damn, and 1 goddamn across your discography so far. What is the kind of role of swearing in your lyrics?
Well, we have a song called Guilty as Fuck, and I'm near sure that probably about 80% of them all happen in that one song, because at the end of it says fuck 12 times in a row or something. I think part of it, there was an influence as kids as well, growing up seeing cassettes that had parental advisory stickers on them, because obviously it was meant to be there to advise parents, but it was also an advert to kids saying, by the way, there's going to be cool swearing in this, so check it out, And that certainly, whenever I was a kid, that was one of the things I thought was cool about Guns N' Roses and bands like that, was that they seemed kind of rude, you know. And yeah, I don't know. Like, it's something, again, it's part of how we talk. So, like, all those kind of swear words would be kind of used in the terminology that we would tend to use them in day-to-day phrases and stuff like that. So I don't think, apart from that Guilty as Fuck song, where it says fuck whatever 16 times in the whole song, like, there was ever any, like, super intent to use swear words to try and, like, you know, get a reaction or something like that, you know.
Well, the newest album is actually the first time we think that you've used damn or goddamn as swear words. So you said like the damned before, but obviously that's quite different from saying damn your eyes and working like a goddamn drop dead dog. So are you aware that you avoided damn to date? And is there a reason why you started to integrate it now?
No, not really. You know, it's just one of those. I would presume, you know, because that song "Secular Saw" is very specifically religious, you know, that you know, that's in there. But yeah, no, I couldn't comment. I don't think so.
Well, another thing that was a bit surprising to us is actually your first album, Survival of the Fastest, from 2006, is completely clean. There's not a single swear word on that. Do you know why that might be? Was there like a sudden desire to include swearing that occurred between this album and 2008 Citizen Brain?
Yeah, oh, God, I honestly can't think. Was there even any other songs around that time? Yeah, there was. There is a song called "Frightmare on Hell Street," which was one of the songs that was written for Citizen Brain in between those two albums, and I think it had swearing in it. I thought maybe there was some swearing in Zombie Command. Maybe there's not. No, but yeah, I guess around then it was probably, again, the whole idea. Whenever you bring out your first body of songs, it's the first 10 or 12 sets of lyrics that you kind of have that you're all happy with. So there probably wasn't like such a wide subject matter back then, because a lot of the songs were either about heavy metal or specific movies or things of that nature, you know. But yeah, I don't know. I honestly couldn't say why that became more popular on, you know, the next album than the first one.
Do you feel that there's been, you mentioned like a few times, both you and Philly across this interview, kind of how a lot of things grew out of you all just kind of hanging out and enjoying the same media and doing things. Is there a chance that like between the first and second and third albums, as kind of as you moved along, your sort of sense of what you're all doing, it has coalesced? Like was the first album, by chance, if you can reflect back to that, and I'm just completely spitballing or guessing here, a bit less fully kind of working as kind of like a project that you're comfortable drawing on your day-to-day and producing, or is that just nothing?
Yeah, like, I think whenever we made the first album, the socially conscious things like racists, that was just like, you know, where we kind of all were like, right, okay, let's write a song that's, you know, specifically anti-fascist. Okay, so that's the idea. But a lot of the other stuff was either Philly or me or Luke would say, oh, here, I have a song and it should be about this idea. It's going to be about a big gigantic crab, or it's going to be about, you know, this particular horror movie or whatever, you know, or bullet belts and like heavy metal culture. And I think that was something that was like probably more important to us back then than it is now. We wanted to write songs like Bullet Belt and Thrashaholic and stuff to try and impose the idea on our audience that, you know, we were the same as them, and like, you know, we had the same taste in music as them. Mm-hmm. And that was probably the same thing as we respect. It was kind of one way where we were kind of slightly being autobiographical to the audience and saying, here, this is all the stuff that we think is cool, by the way, in case any of you care, you know.
Well, kind of building on that, like, what would you say in sum is the role of lyrics, you know, across Gama Bomb's whole catalogue, and I suppose in the extreme metal genre then more broadly?
Yeah, like, I think it is. It's so important. And like, there's some brilliant examples of bands in every form of extreme metal who've used lyrics brilliantly, you know. I feel really privileged that I kind of am proud that Gama Bomb have always had lyrics that we find interesting, and that it's always been a collaborative process and everybody's had their say. And like, I think the most important thing about that is like everybody has always been on the same page. No one has said, actually, I don't want to write a song about this. Well, it's always been something that everybody has been interested in, you know. But yeah, in terms of like in the wider scale of metal, I think it is really, really, really important. Like, and there's a number of bands who've like written fantastic lyrics, and there's a number of bands out there whose lyrics, like, I guess to me, don't mean anything. But what it says really important is that heavy metal lyrics, whenever you're growing up, can specifically. I remember whenever I was a kid and heard "In My Darkest Hour" by Megadeth, I thought that that was about me, because whenever you're like, you know, being a moody 15-year-old, you're like, oh my God, that's how I feel, like, you know. So like it, I think in every single part of your life, you're going to relate to lyrics totally differently depending on your experience. Heavy metal lyrics for every single sort of that, like, you know, there's, you know, more like conscious lyrics for whenever you're older, and there's, you know, there's I don't know, I guess more like sort of angsty lyrics whenever you're younger.
You mentioned, meaning, in kind of lyrics that are goofy or lyrics that are about, revisiting a horror film, but in the musical genre. Is there a meaning to that as well, in a sense?
How do you mean? Sorry.
Well, we could have opened this interview by talking about people that said like, oh, you can't have silly lyrics in metal or whatever. Silly lyrics they're not deep, whatever. But you mentioned just now that you like it when a song is kind of meaningful for you. Is there meaning to be found in kind of humor and in revisiting films in a new medium and joking about things? Like what's the meaning that for you that exists in kind of play, I guess, and having a bit of a laugh with art?
I think that like there's certainly like an idea with a lot of the topics that we bring to the band, like something like Iron Blood, which is like a song about a toy from like G.I. Joe from whenever we were kids and stuff. And like a lot of the times it's us taking something that we think is cool, writing lyrics that are generally around that, and then like trying to apply it to music. And like frequently things like that, like, you know, it's not self-evident in the song that's what it's about. Maybe the influence is a little more a bit more fucking, you know, obscured. But yeah, I'm not sure, to be honest. Like, I'm not 100% sure.
Perfectly fine, very common.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you find yourself revisiting older songs from Gama Bomb and feeling like, oh, I feel different about this now than when we wrote it? Like it means something, or it hits me in a different way?
Yeah, like there's a couple of lines in songs, like in the song "Guilty as Fuck." One of the lines is "Sent to the slammer, attacked by the gays," and like I think at the time, like we were obviously just being like, haha, because I think it was like based on like the movie Escape from Alcatraz, but if it was some sort of heavy metal prison. But yet we wouldn't include a line like that in a song now, just because it's the sort of thing that like if someone takes offense to it, I don't know why you would specifically put that in there to offend somebody. Now I suppose someone could turn around and say, by the same token, we're writing songs that are about anti-religion, you know. Mm. But you know, we feel much more comfortable making a comment about religion than we would like using saying "attacked by the gays" or something like that. And I think that's probably more. We wrote those lyrics when we were 20. I had the same conversation with Dan Liker from Nuclear Assault. Like we were having a smoke, and I was like, "Yeah, you know, blah blah blah." The song "Lesbians," and he was like, "Well, you know, I was 19 when I wrote that song. I don't obviously hate lesbians. Like it's just the sort of thing that you write when you're 19, you know."
Mm.
What about like that? I mean, even beyond stuff that's about changes in perspective. What about just even like revisiting songs about zombies and like when you write a song about zombies when you're 18, you go back to it 2 decades later. Does it hit differently, or is there some like kind of nostalgic fun that still exists for you?
Yeah, well, look, you know, because all those songs about zombies and stuff like that specifically are about movies that like I probably still watch those movies every couple of years, you know, so I usually get a smile whenever I read those lyrics. I'm never kind of like, luckily, I'm never feeling very cringy about that. And there's some bands that I know where they're like, you know, some of their heavy metal lyrics and stuff like that, they were like kind of embarrassed by now because they're like, oh yeah, you know, that like, because I guess whenever you're writing songs about jumping into the pit and all that kind of stuff, like you're talking about doing it as a 17-year-old, not as like a 41-year-old, look, you know.
Yeah, it's a very different lifestyle.
Yeah, before your back goes out.
Yeah.
I suppose that's all we've got for you. So if you could leave us with any updates, any news, any things that we should let everyone know about, particularly if they're listening to Gama Bomb for the first time, if they're big fans, what do they need to know?
Well, we have a new record coming out on the 10th of November, I think it is, called Bats. And we've got some shows in the UK and shows in Europe coming up. And we're going to be on the march promoting that for the next year. And then we'll be hopefully coming somewhere near you for some gigs.
That'd be amazing. You should definitely come to Australia.
Yeah, particularly down here. Yeah, please.
We'd love to. We've talked to some promoters about it before and stuff. So it's really about just trying to find a time scale that would work for maybe like bringing us and like Evil or someone down together, you know.
Awesome. Look forward to it.
And you mentioned a song about nunchucks. Is there a new album in the moving forward at the moment as well?
Yeah. So like we're kind of we did like a bunch of work really. So I think we've about half a new album sort of on the go. So I guess the idea would probably bring out another album in 2025, like and keep on chug-a-lugging.
In line with all that, like where's the best place for everyone to kind of keep up with your releases, tour dates, all of that information?
Just the usuals. Go and check out Gama Bomb on Instagram and Twitter, /X, and Facebook. You'll be able to get all the info there, and you'll see all our tour dates on Spotify and stuff anyway. So go and have a listen. There's a Newbie's Guide to Gama Bomb playlist on there, so it'll give you all you should listen to.
Awesome. Okay. That's perfect.
Okay. Well, thank you. Good. Yeah, thanks for your time. Please give our thanks again to Philly. Appreciate you hanging around, and it was a delight learning about what goes into all this. I've been a huge fan of what you guys do, so it's really cool to hear kind of the stories behind some of the songs that
it's been really, really insightful questions, and you have obviously done like deep delves of homework, so thank you very much for your time as well. We
try to make sure that our questions don't bore our audience, the people we're asking them to, but we don't always succeed.
Yeah.
Thanks at all, guys, and hopefully we'll be over there at some stage in the near future.
That'd be lovely. That'd be awesome.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
Cheers.
No worries, guys. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too.
Cheers.
Bye.
Right.
Thank you for listening to Lingua Italica. We hope you enjoyed it, and we hope you stay tuned for our next episode. Before we leave, we just wanted to acknowledge that this podcast is recorded on the unceded lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation and the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. We pay respects to their elders, past and present.